We're here to tell you.
So
From the ripped
it
ass.
was just a piece of no good can come from it.
No one likes us.
Guest, I'm back with the good brother Cody McCarthy. Cody hit me up and told me he had a few extra stories that came to him that he was going to tell me about. As you may know or may not know, Cody has an Instagram called TPM Tour Stories. That is an Instagram profile that is dedicated to the memorabilia and also the stories and photographs that came along the way of his father's career in touring literally the world with many bands you probably know from your dad's yacht. What? Chicago, Fleetwood Mac, Boston, any band named after a city, your man was there.
Yeah, exactly. Even America, they were.
Yeah.
They,
Oh, so Mr. Mac, I'm glad to see
Yeah.
you're doing well. Glad to see that Miss Maddie gets to get out of the house a little bit today.
yeah, me too.
But that aside, what story grabbed you that you had to get back in here with me?
It was funny because I was thinking we didn't touch too much on like the Fleetwood Mac stuff, and we did like with the when they weren't getting along, blah blah. And I was the dude that would do the flashlight, but the two stories, it's so funny. So when they got back together and did the dance, it was all over MTV. They did a whole thing. That was filmed at the Warner Brothers lot. And I was working there at the time. But I didn't know, and like in my dad's rule back in the day was like, look, if you want tickets to any show, like if I wasn't on the tour, you want tickets to any show, pick a different city than LA. Because everyone and their mother wants to go to LA. It's just it was hard for him. I mean, he could do it if he really tried, but it was just like he'd be like, "Dude, I'll fly you out to Arizona and just go to those shows. Like those are all day, and you get more time to see everybody." But it was one of those things. It was like, so I wasn't even going to ask for that because it was like such a who's who of like every actor, like all the ER actors, anyone who was big time at Warner Brothers was going, and they only had a certain number.
Yeah, because this was what, the early '90s, right? '92.
This mid-90s, yeah, I would say like 94, 95 maybe.
Okay.
Like mid-90s.
Yeah, I remember.
And I was driving my golf cart, and I actually had my boss with me at the time, and we were driving, and we're kind of going by the stage, but I didn't really know what the stage was. But I'm driving, and all of a sudden I hear, "Is that Cody?" Like just this booming voice, and I was like, and my boss was like, "What?" And I stopped, and it was Mick Fleetwood out of one of the trailers, and he was like, "Your dad told us you worked here. We've been trying to find where you were." But like my dad didn't know where I was in the mailroom, so I was always kind of I was everywhere on the lot. And he brought basically he brought Stevie and Chris, like everyone was out, like, and my boss is freaking out. She's like, "What is happening right now?" Because also back then, like I didn't really tell a lot of people like who my dad was. Like it just didn't come up, so they're like, "Wait a second." And so she was like, "Are you going to come to the show?" And I was like, "Nah, like I'm cool. Like I don't want to go. Like it's, like I've seen you guys enough. Like I don't need, like, don't worry about it." And my boss is like hitting me, and I was like, "Well, what, can my boss go though?" And she's like, "Oh, that's your boss." She goes, "We'll put an extra chair out there," and put like an extra chair in the stage. They did it at one of the stages. And my boss for basically the rest of the month was like, "You can have every Monday off."
So, fantastic.
Yeah, that. And then the other good one was one of my best friends growing up, this kid named Jared. We were hanging out. My dad hit me up one night and was like, I didn't know he was in town, and he calls me. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh no, me and Jared are at my apartment just hanging out." He goes, "Do you want to go grab dinner with me?" And my dad loved all my friends, and I was like, "Yeah, is it cool if I bring Jared?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Meet me at this warehouse. We're in North Hollywood. Here's the address. When you come up, there's going to be a security guard. Just tell him who you are." And I was like, "All right, what is this for?" Dad didn't tell me anything. Like, didn't know what he was. I'm like, obviously, you're setting up something. So go up to the thing, pull in. And this was pre the Warner Brothers thing. So it was a little bit before. And I was like, I pulled in, or it was right after the Warner Brothers thing, because they played that show and then they decided they were going to do a tour together. I don't think the tour was set until they realized how much of a big deal that show was.
Sure.
And I pull into this warehouse, and there's a whole stage set up, and there's two chairs. And I was like, "Dad, where are we going to eat?" And he goes, well, we got to do this thing real quick. We got to run through the set. He goes, look, there's two chairs. It's you and Jared can just sit there. And I was like, okay. And I sit down, and all of a sudden, Fleetwood comes out, and they play their whole 3 hour set for just me and Jared. And my boy was like, this, he never saw them growing up, and he didn't come into my life till after my dad was kind of not, I wasn't touring with him anymore.
Right.
And my boy freaked out.
Now, was this this was a sound check? That was, or
This
not?
was, yeah, it was a run through, like to get their lighting
Right.
guy, like they was the whole crew was there, and it was basically their rehearsal for the tour, like get their lighting all set up,
Of
get their
course.
monitor set up, figure out what they need. It was like probably, and then like I think a week later they left to start the tour, from what I remember.
Oh, that's heavy. Okay, so he
Yeah.
wasn't. At first, I'm like, I was like, is Tim trying to surprise Cody with something, or is it just, hey, I got to do this real quick, come hang out?
Yeah, it was
That's
do this, like to him it was just like something he had to do, and I know
sure.
I think for him he thought it was going to be really cool, like for me to see, because I think for the last couple of years I had been like, you know, asking him more. When I was a little older, I started asking him more and more, like for certain shows. Like if I saw Kenny was playing, I'd be like, Dad, can you get me into into Kenny's show? And so things like that. So I think it was
Sure.
cool for him to. I think he brought it up to the band, and they were like, "Yeah, of course!" Like, because he told him I lived right by there,
Right on.
because I was in
Okay.
Van
And
Nuys at the time.
oh, I got you. I got you. Oh, it's a
Yeah.
warehouse in Van Nuys.
Yeah, or North Hollywood. It was like North Hollywood, but
Yeah,
it's right down. It's like 5 minute drive from where I was
that's
at.
right. That's right. You already said North Hollywood. My bad.
Yeah.
So was this just on since we're on Fleetwood Mac? Would when they got back together that time, was it a, and I don't want to say anything bad about them. Everybody's beef is their own deal, and I don't do that type of reporting, quote unquote, as it were. But when they got back together, did they bury the hatchet, or was it, hey, we're leaving money on the table?
I think there's a weird mixture of both.
Okay.
Like I didn't go on those tours at all, because I was a little too old, and but I was young enough where my mom was like, "Yeah, you're not doing that." Like, I just would have been in trouble.
Yeah.
But when I saw them, I think it was like, I think there was a lot of money to be made. I think that's mostly what it was. I think they buried the hatchet for, in my personal opinion. Again, I don't know.
Yeah.
I never had those, but you can only think about what had happened after that. Like after that tour, it was Stevie went solo and did her couple solo tours.
Hmm.
Mick did his thing. Like they weren't. It's not like they stayed. It's not like the Eagles, when they kind of broke up, they kind of kept going, or when Toto kind of got back together, they kept going for years. Like it was kind of a one and done thing, which leads me to believe it was more like, hey, we can get along good enough for these 6 months, 8 months to make this happen for us.
Sure. Yeah,
You know,
which is a totally understandable and normal thing.
right,
It makes perfect sense to me when people do it. And
right.
whatever helps people bury the hatchet in any way and get past it is probably for the
But
better.
I feel when
Um,
those things happen, it's so hard though, because it's like, when Fleetwood first broke up, like Mick had his own thing, and Stevie was doing her solo thing, Lindsay was doing his solo thing, John and Christy were doing their thing. So they all had their own. Now they had their own circle. So it's not like just the 5 or 6 of them getting back together. It's now the 10 people that fought that circle Stevie, and then when they got back on, my dad kind of went. He kind of did stay with Stevie, because my dad's best friend is Stevie's brother, so he kind of
uh,
stayed with Stevie. So but the good thing is, when Stevie came in, it was like, I want Tim to be involved, and everyone was like, oh yeah, of course, because my dad had done some stuff for Lindsay also. But then you had like, Mick was like, I need this guy to be involved, who wasn't a part of the original crew. Like there's things
mhm,
like that had to be worked out, that I think it's just, now you're putting too many different camps in the same thing. And
right.
I think after a while, it's one of those things where it's like, all right, we kind of did it.
Yeah, it makes sense too that would happen. It's because the name. I mean, okay, so Stevie Nicks leaves, and Mick leaves, and Lindsay leaves, and they start their own solo thing. Well, their name is the one that kind of carries the weight. So if Lindsay is on tour with whoever, and that guy's living now depends on Lindsay providing work
Right.
for, he's got. it makes sense that they would try to be like, oh, listen, I got to throw this guy a bone. I see it in entertainment all the time
Right.
with the crews behind the scene going, hey, listen, I'm going to get you work if I can, but this, this particular artist needs this type of setup and so on and so forth. But
Yeah.
they're always trying to get each other work like that. I think it goes, like you said, all the way up to the artists. They're doing the
Right.
same thing, guys
Well,
backstage.
yeah, like when my dad kind of retired, like when he kind of aged out and was a little bit too, you know, got a little overweight, stopped doing all the drugs, like just wasn't, his health wasn't the greatest. He was
Sure.
getting thrown bones left and right. He lived in Minnesota, but it was like every time a show came through, they called my dad, was like, hey, can you jump on this tour? Because almost every tour that went through either had a member of a band or a member of the crew that had worked for my dad or with my dad at some point. So yeah, that's all it's the community of like road dogs, as they call them, is
Hmm.
like those original guys. Like I said, I still talk to some of my dad's guys, and they all know each other. Like one of the guys that used to work at Shamrock, Louis Perez. He's the son of Louis Perez from Los Lobos,
Oh,
and one of their road guys knew my dad. Like they kind of, when he was getting tattooed, Louis brought it up. Was like, oh, that's Tim's, and then he had been on a tour with my dad. Like, you know what I mean? So it's a very small world of like the legit, not just the whole. I am bringing my homie on tour. It's like there's a small legit number of like that's that guy. So
the inner circle. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. So speaking of that, I know at one point I heard you talking about a story where you got heated with your pops because I think it was he didn't do the Halen tour or something like this.
Well, I got into hair metal, and he did a Motley Crue, he did a West Coast, like he jumped on a Motley Crue, the Doctor Feelgood tour for like 3 shows because I think someone in the crew had a kid and had to leave for just 3 shows. And I don't even think he said he never met the band. Like it legitimately, he was like helping out the lighting guy, I think, for like the 3 shows on the West Coast. But I remember being so mad because at the time it was like I was at that weird age where I fully got into like Motley Crue and Rat and Wasp and all that hair metal stuff. And I so like, it's different now. Like now I'm like, dude, yacht rock all day long, like, and fucking while I listen to hip hop, I'll put on Toto and Kenny Loggins. But that 15, 16, 17 years old, with long hair, listen to heavy metal, like it wasn't really cool to listen to Kenny Loggins anymore. Like you do it in
Right.
your room when no one was around, kind of thing. So I used to get on my dad's case, like, dude, why do you have to do Don Henley this year? Why can't you fucking get like a cooler band? And I would get so mad that like he'd call me up, he goes, all right, we're doing Don Henley this year, his solo thing when he was doing Dirty Laundry. And I was like, what, you don't know anyone in Van Halen's camp? You can't. And I was so mad because I didn't want to do Don Henley anymore. Like I just thought it
Yeah.
was so lame. But now looking back at it, like it was like my dad had his niche, and he wasn't gonna jump into like as much as those guys partied in the '70s in a certain way.
Yeah.
I think I don't think my dad would have survived the '80s rock scene. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Van Halen were Hoover vacuums, man. They were doing some shit.
And I'm friends with Fred Saunders' son, and Fred Saunders was like Motley Crue's main security guy and worked for Rat also.
Okay.
And he would tell me stories about like those tours, and I'd be like, "What in the entire?" Like
Mhm.
that. Like my dad would have died. Like he would have died.
Well, I'm glad he made it quite a bit further
Yeah,
than that. Then.
yeah.
So, um, did did you ever did he ever do any of the tours or do bring any of the bands purposely out that you particularly wanted to be into at that point? Like, did he do Rat? Did he do Guns N' Roses? Did he
No,
do?
no. He did, like I said, he did the Motley Crue like 3 shows, but I didn't. I found out after the fact again, which I was pissed me off because I was like, "You didn't like." He told me like a month later. He was like, "Oh yeah, I did like 3 shows with that group Motley Crue that you like," and I was like, "Well, thanks for the fucking." But I get it. He was jumping on as a favor. He didn't never met
Sure.
the like. There's no way he was going to get me into the show, like especially in LA. Like, there's no
Sold
way.
out.
So right. But when you're 15, 16 years old, you think your dad is Superman.
Of course.
Not till you're an adult, you realize like, like when I'd be on tour with Bill, like those were the MySpace days, and I remember putting the itinerary up, like, this is where I'm gonna be and I swear to God, every goddamn show, no matter what state, city, someone was hitting me up on MySpace being like, "Yo, can I get in?" And it was like,
Right.
like I can go up to Bill and Eclipse and be like, "Yo, can I get these two people on the list?" But it's like I can't do that every show, and I can't do it 3 times because that still takes money out of the tickets. Like it's
Yeah.
like these people don't understand. It's like, yo, man, so it's like being older. Like when I was older, I talked to my dad about it and apologized for giving him a hard time, like about not being able to get me into certain shows or not
Yeah.
having. But it's like when he really did. I remember Stevie Nicks played a show at the Greek Theater, and when I was working at Warner Brothers, and I hadn't seen her since I was, probably 10, and now I was 23, 24, and I remember there was this girl that I was like infatuated with it a lot, like every day I'd be like in her office trying to talk to her, and she was cool, but like didn't she found like she had a poster of Stevie Nicks in her office, and so I was like, all right, kind of put that in my mind, and when she was coming to the Greek, I called my dad, and my dad's like, okay, cool. Like, I can do this. Cause I was like, Dad, I don't ask you for much, but can I just get 2 tickets for this show? And he was like, yeah. So I asked the girl to the show, and they were the worst seats at the Greek. Not that there's really any bad seats at the Greek, but it was like the farthest seat away. But I
Ah,
remember, she and the girl was like during the date, you just realized, oh, this girl sucks. Like she's not. She's she's pretty shitty. Like I'm like this isn't fun for me. But I also got when I got my tickets, all I was expecting was tickets, but there was also wristbands to go in the back, and so I didn't tell the girl at first. So after the show, we're sitting there, and she goes, "All right, let's go." And I was like, "Oh well, hold on." I put the wristbands on her, and she was kind of freaking out because I guess she had moved out here from a different state, and then when we went back there and Stevie saw me, I mean, that girl would have married me right then and there because Stevie came up to me crying, talking about how she changed my diaper when I was a baby. Like all these, what like aunties will tell the kids when they see them. And the fact that it was Stevie, like she didn't want to talk about it. She sat me down and like let everyone away. And we talked for like an hour. And this girl was just like, I mean, she was like eating out of the palm of my hand, but we just drove home and I dropped her off because it was just one of those things that was like, I also never liked that. Like when I would meet somebody and if, you could see if they like you and then all of a sudden they see who you know and then it
right.
changes. And I've always had a big, because when I was friends with Danny, I'd see it, with Vinny, all these people, the people act different and it's just not like that's just not how I was. So yeah, I ended that date. So
Yeah. I mean, does that happen to you fairly often, having to deal with that type of reaction from people? I imagine that
uh,
it probably does.
it goes in like waves. Like it really like when Lakota was starting, it was going a lot because my whole thing, like on my MySpace, it was Cody Mac, Lakota Nostra, and all my, you know what I mean? So yeah,
Sure.
like someone was writing to Bill or Danny or Left or Everlast or whoever or Slain, and they weren't getting a response. I feel like they just went to the people that were closest to them and tried it. You know what I mean? And I try to be
Yeah.
cool with everybody. So at first I'd be like, oh, wow, what's up? And then, the first time there's someone be like, yo, can I send you a beat CD? And I was like, oh, dude, I don't fucking rap, bro. Like, don't send me a beat CD. And they're like, yeah, but can you give it to this? And as soon as they said that, I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. Like, I'm not
That's a that's a
like,
weird thing. I don't understand why people get in their head that that's the way to go about shit.
right.
It's so foreign and bizarre to me. I don't understand
Like,
that.
never in a million, I don't even care if that beat's the coolest beat I ever heard. My friendship with these dudes isn't like when we talk, I'm not talking like I don't sit in the studio with Vinny and talk about what he's rapping to. Like I don't
But right.
like we talk about life and talk about kids and moms and friends and like we don't if we talk about music, it's the music he thinks that he thinks sucks that I love, and then back and forth him that we you know what I mean? So it's like I'm not gonna be like, here, by the way, Vin, some random dude I never met sent me this CD for beats. Like Vin would do the
Right.
same thing I did and just fucking like I mean, even when I was on tour with nonfiction, like I'd see them hand demos to Bill and Eclipse all the time, and we would just go. Eclipse would put it in a bag, and he would always say, "He goes at some point I'll probably listen and see what's up, see if there's anything." But like these kids would be, and then write them on MySpace. Did you get my? Did you listen? Did you listen? And it's
Right.
like, like stop. Like that's
Yeah,
not the way to be.
I do understand the theory of the squeaky wheel gets the most grease. Well, that doesn't always work that way. You know,
Right.
I mean, sometimes if the wheel squeaks too much, you're just going to replace the goddamn wheel altogether.
Exactly. It depends on the make of the car. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right, right.
Like like Bill, I love Bill to death, and that's one of my best friends. But he can be grumpy, man, on the wrong day. Like if he get, like if you come at him the wrong way, he's gonna let you know. Like same with Vin. Like there's people that'll keep it smiling and move it, but then there's other people like Bill and Vin and even Eric like that'll be like, yo, man, like stop. Like you're like I'm not fucking with you. Like enough.
Right.
Like so that's
Take a
squeaky wheel
fucking
shit.
hint.
Just yeah, like and that's the weird thing is I feel like a lot of people don't take hints. Like that's why even when Vin comes out, like I go to those shows straight up solo or I drive them. Like I always ask, like, Vin, can I pick someone up? Like, I'll pick up whoever's in the, with him. Like if it's Crypt or Esoteric or Reef or whoever, because I don't want to go with other people because I don't want to ask for a bunch of stuff, but it's like I don't want someone to act up because this is, these are my people. Like, and not everyone knows how to act backstage. I think they see drinks and they think they can get, and I don't drink. So when people get drunk around me, it annoys me anyway. And then
Sure.
I'm hypersensitive when it's like, don't be backstage at my friend's show drinking their shit. Like, act right. Like, do what I do. Like, chill out, drink a soda. You don't have to, you know what I mean? So it's like, I only bring my wife or I go solo. You know what I mean? Because I don't want I don't want to worry. I just want to have fun.
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, if people are backstage on your name, you're gonna feel
Right.
responsible for that. And like about the people that don't take a hint, I guess it shouldn't surprise either one of us that there are so many people that don't. But you ever notice that always, even when you do talk to them and they're trying to get through it, trying to act right, it's clear that they're trying because they're just waiting for you to stop talking so that they can say whatever it is. They're not even listening, you know?
Right.
Um, I cannot, I don't understand the mindset. It's so bizarre to me how often this happens that people see it right in front of them and still don't
Right.
act right after don't take the cue for them to not do it.
Well, like when I first met my wife, like I was hanging out with Danny, like I was basically me and Danny were like together every single day. Like I
Right.
don't other than when I was at work, I was usually rolling around with Danny. So it was like when I first met my wife, when I kind of like mentioned to her, like, I was like, oh, I'm hanging out with Danny, or she saw a picture. She was like, oh, who's that again? And I told her, and she was like, oh, yeah, I like them in high school. Like, to her, like, it didn't matter. And I don't know what it was, but that's something that, like, totally brought me into her. I was like, oh, shit, she doesn't give a fuck. Like, we had one of the Thanksgivings, like, Everlast stopped by, like fucking Lefty was there, Slane was there. She does, when I'm like, oh, Slane's gonna, or I'm gonna go eat with Slane, she'll be like, his name is George. Stop call like she hates that I call them by
Right.
their rap names. Like she's always like, they have real names. Like, stop calling them that. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like it's so like so I love that because I had been with girls that have been like, ooh, this person, and then it's like, all right, dude, I know what you're here for.
Uh-huh. Yeah, see, and that's fun. My wife is very much the same way. I mean, she worked closer to the entertainment. She works in the entertainment industry, so this is what she does. She does sound, but she also does plenty of road crew shit, plenty of load in, load out, and heavy
Right.
lifting, and tuning and monitors and all. She'll do all that stuff. But yeah, that stuff that's one of the things I always liked about her. Doesn't phase her whatsoever. She's like,
Right.
yeah, fucking Frankie Valli was in last week. He's nice guy, but he's too old to be doing this. Like,
Yeah, exactly. I didn't know where does she do sound at?
well, she's I'm not right now. She does
Right.
our podcast, and
Mhm.
she's actually been doing some remote theater sound work, doing for a theater that's out in Milwaukee,
Oh
which
wow.
is intense because when she does that, she's in the theater and can hear everything
Right.
and can EQ mics and all this other stuff. But she's got to do it from California, from Southern California to
That's crazy.
to Milwaukee. So that's a little stressful, but she got it done. She's also does plenty of composing and sound design. But before COVID ruined all the everything, she was she worked a number of places, but she's most often worked at the casino that's uh, about 30 minutes from here.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so there was entertainment shows every Friday. night, and sometimes they do a couple days in a row, depending on who it is.
Right.
But yeah, she's been doing it there. Basically, she's part of the. She doesn't work for the casino. She's an independent contractor, but they're kind of the house crew that
Gotcha.
is hired from outside to come in and do every show that comes through there, stand up comedy or or bands or even
That's
even
awesome.
like psychics and mediums, like
Oh wow.
some of those TV psychics will come through and they do live
Yeah.
shows all the time. Oddly enough, those are the ones that sell out the quickest and the most.
Oh,
Is the
my
psychic?
brother.
It tripped me out.
My brother does sound for like LA Live in the Microsoft Theater by the Staples Center, and he tells me all the time. He goes, "Dude," he goes, "the craziest things are like the mariachi bands that play out there,
Yeah,
and the TED Talk, like the Tony Robbins type shit. Though he's like, those are gone. Like I remember him telling me once, he
instant.
like they had a '90s thing where it was like SWV, like all those kind of groups like Silk and
Yeah,
Shy. And he said that wasn't, it took a while to sell out, like, which baffled him because he was like, I heard of all those bands. I never heard of this mariachi dude. And this dude doing 2 nights and it sold out in like 10 minutes.
gee, yeah. So that's wild because I see the same thing. I think the last like '90s thing that came through was it was Vanilla Ice and Mark. What's the Irishman from Sugar Ray? Mark McGrath.
Yeah, great guy. Dope dude.
Apparently, yeah, Mark is apparently like the nicest guy ever.
Swear to you, he's one of, like, he comes into the Shamrock once in a while. He's friends with Mark too, and he's friends with
Okay, yeah,
Danny. So I've known him for a couple of years now, and he's one of those dudes. If he was driving down the street and saw me walking by, he'd like stop the car, like he'll get like like, I know he gets a lot of shit from a lot of people, but he legitimately is. He knows more. I'll say this about Mark: if you put him on any Music Jeopardy, he knows more about music than anyone I've ever known. But like every genre, like he could tell you who played on every punk rock album. Like
right.
you would think he just knows the lame shit, but that dude's legit. Like, and most people don't know that, but he's legit.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that first Sugar Ray record at some point. My cousin showed it to me. I'm like, shit, this is Sugar Ray. This is kind of hard. But
Well, their first album was produced by Lethal from House
that's
of Pain.
right.
He signed him. That first record, Nicole Eggert was on the cover. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah.
right.
Before
I
they
mean,
hit big.
if you put it on right now, I probably wouldn't recognize it because I've literally heard that record one time and it was 15
Right.
years ago. But yeah, he was nice. Robert Van Winkle is a dickhead. I don't give a fuck. Anybody listens to this, you could tell that motherfucker I said so. We can talk about it if he wants to. But like he was an asshole to the stage crew, everybody.
Right.
But oh balls, what was I talking about? Oh, but yeah, that show didn't sell out at all.
Yeah.
And often I'm not going to say which casino it is, but where it's at, it's often I found is a starting point for a lot of tours. Even guys from like the East Coast will come out here and start at this
Okay.
casino and then work their way back east.
Right.
But the one that tripped me out is there's a woman named Teresa Caputo. I'd never heard of her before she came to the thing. Apparently she's called the Long Island Medium. She's
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
okay, yeah, she's some lady from, I think maybe that's the name of the show. It's a television show
Yeah.
I'm not aware of. But she came out and when her tickets went on sale, they sold out within minutes. So when that happened, they just added a second show. And
Wow.
then that sold out in minutes. So not only did they do that, they said, hey, listen, if you're going to work, what she did was actually work her way there and then back. So they said, when you come back, we'll do another set of shows. And they did. And those sold out in minutes. Not only that, but people will start calling as soon as the poster goes up. Tickets aren't even on sale. But
Right.
the poster for the show that's coming out in 6 months is up. And they start calling, going, hey, I want to get tickets for that. Like, those don't go on sale for 3 months. It's
Right.
insane.
So weird.
And they added, they now, when she comes around, 3 shows, and they all sell out instantly. It's the
I don't get it.
weirdest thing.
Yeah. There's so many things like that where you're like, how did this motherfucker
Right.
sell these? Like, what? Like, huh? And then bands that you like really love, you're like, how do you not? Like, how, what? Like,
Yeah.
it's so weird. It's such a weird thing. It's like, I think once you're on TV, you could sell out 2 days of those kind of venues, because it's just
Yeah,
the mindless masses are like, oh, I've heard of them, let's go there. Like, kind of
sure.
how it works, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of selling things out, I went to ask you this last time and you brought it up again. We were just talking about getting people into shows, right? People are, hey, let me get in, or I don't pay to get into shows because I'm too fucking important. It's like, oh,
Right.
whoa, really? You don't like to support your friends or the bands that you care about? That's cool of you, dude. But but I get it. I get the occasional, hey, you mind if I get in or whatever? But you're also talking about people that have to know, especially if they're people that hand off CDs that are trying to break into the industry somehow or another. They have to know that. I mean, when you were doing those Bill shows, or not Bill, but when you're doing the nonfiction shows, those are you doing what, 200 to 1,000 seat clubs somewhere in there?
We were doing like theaters. It was definitely theaters. It was because it was hieroglyphics also. They're a big draw.
Oh,
So like
that's
there,
right.
you know what, I'm sure there was venues that were like, 900 to 1,000, but we were doing anywhere between 1,000 to 3,000. Depends on where on the,
Okay,
But we were playing, the Knitting Factory, like in New York. The Troc, I think, is where we were at in Philly. Like,
in Philly. Yeah.
When did North Dakota, there was probably the venue was probably 700, 800. Utah probably the same. We did. I remember showing Aspen, and that was a really small venue, but it was packed. But yeah, like in Seattle, it was definitely had to be 1,500 to 2,000 at least.
Yeah.
They did we did House of Blues in L.A. Um,
Hmm.
so like those kind of venues, like it was more theaters with that.
I got you, but I think, yeah, what I'm on about is that, so yeah, it's a little. I wasn't sure. I figured it was probably a little bigger, but I forgot about Hyro, and um, so yeah, I mean, you got tickets are probably what back then, $10, $15,
I
20
think they were
maybe.
20, yeah, 20, 25 maybe.
Yeah,
20
yeah. So I
probably is
mean, you
my
got
guess.
that. A, you can't spare $25 to go to a
Right.
show, and B, there's 47 people in hieroglyphics. There's three
Right.
people in nonfiction. Like,
Right.
you gotta. I mean, you're taking a significant amount of money off the table if every single show, 2, 3 people get in for free. You
Right.
know.
And well, my thing was this: if I hit somebody, if someone hit me up and wanted to get in, my rule was this: if I can get you in to the show, you have to buy some merch. Like,
Merch, sure.
because that money goes I mean, the show money gets split up and goes to have some to Hyro, some to us, some to everybody. But
Yeah.
that merch, you buy a nonfiction T-shirt that goes directly back into the band specifically. So that was my thing. Like, if I can get you in, you better come at it with like, buy yourself a couple CDs, a couple shirts, and
Right.
to me that was worth it. Like, if I got them in for $20, but then they spent 50 or 60 at the merch booth, it was a win. Like, and
Yeah.
anyone in the band would be like, hell yeah, do that every time. So,
Of course.
that was kind of my deal. Like, if whoever I got in would always come see me, I'm like, yo, man, like, have at it. Like, which shirt you buying? And, that's kind of how it worked. So it was good.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. That's great. That's how you grease the wheels, man.
Yep.
So, do you ever think about going back to do this? I know you're comfortable and happy at Shamrock. I don't know how you couldn't be, but do you ever think about going back out, doing
No,
some tour stuff again?
I've like, I think when nonfiction kind of got back together and they did some overseas thing, I kind of put it in Bill's ear. I was like, hey, if you do a West Coast run, I would like, if someone did a West Coast, like, where I only had to take like 2 days off of work kind of thing, I would think about it. But it would have to be like, it would be Bill or Vinny, or
Sure.
I'm really good friends with that dude Travie McCoy, used to be
Okay.
in Gym Class Heroes, like someone like that, like someone who I consider like someone that's broke bread at my house, like that's family to me. I would do it, but I honestly, like, it's not just work, but it's like, at some point, Maddie's not going to want to hang out with me anymore. She's so like these kind of days where I get like, you know, being gone for 3 days, like, isn't the most fun for me anymore. Like it used to be really like, yeah, like get out and see the world, but I've seen it all. Like I've done it. Like I was at every state with Bill and Vinny, we've done it all. So it's like, like I'm good. Like I like to
Right.
go to the shows and support and have fun like that. But also when you're working, like people would understand. Like I never saw, like, unless the merch booth was in the same area, I didn't see every show because sometimes the merch booth is around the corner. So all
Yeah,
you
man.
can do is hear it. And you're there from the beginning of the show to the end of the show. So, you know, it's sometimes you don't get to even see the band. So like, but even when I'm there, like if I'm backstage, I try to, you know, if I'm with Vinny, I ask Jan, like, do you need me to put out waters, towels? Like, I try to like help out as much as I can to kind of pull a little bit of weight because I know I got in for free. So let me pull a little bit, some kind of weight, like carry something, do something, you know, make sure something's good. You know, my wife hates going to shows with me when we're not like backstage. Like she went, you know, don't make fun of me, but my wife likes 311 and Incubus and all those kind of bands. And we went to one of the shows when we were first dating, and she was so mad at me because I was sitting there like this the whole show. And she's like, "What are you doing? Like, you're not even having fun." And I was like, "No, like, I'm watching things happening on stage. I'm watching the roadie, you know, the drum. Did you see the fucking drummer? His cymbal fell over. Like, I'm watching how quick it took for, like, because I've been back there and I've seen it and I've done it. I don't, it's like hard for me to enjoy that, like, when I'm at a show now. Like, I kind of, I'm focused more on like what's going on behind the band now.
Yeah. No, it's in your
Like,
DNA. And my
yeah,
wife and I are the same. We both do that. I mean, if I'm at a bar, I tend to be like, look, I'm all, because I was a bouncer for so long. I was a bartender for so long. I'm constantly like watching what's going on. I can't help it. I
right.
very rarely do I relax and let go. And she's the same way at a show. If there's a sound problem
Oh,
that
yeah, man.
nobody in the world can hear, she's going, when are they going to fix that? There's a hum, there's a squeak, there's this,
Right.
there's feedback. And she, not only will she be like, when are they going to fix that? She'll be like, when are they going to do these exact things to fix it? Because she already knows. She
Right.
also wants to look at what kind of soundboard they're using. All kinds, like
Oh, yeah.
she can't switch off either. I totally get it.
It's like once you know how the sausage is made, you know, like it's so weird to like when I do go to shows, like it's so hard. Like I hate like I said, the last probably 15 concerts I've been to is friends of mine. Like it's like the last band I paid to go see that I didn't know someone in was probably Jamiroquai. Like, and I could enjoy that, but still watching that, I'm like watching everyone on the side of the stage. I'm seeing who's back there standing with them. Like it's the we it's so weird that like once you're kind of involved in that, how it just the enjoyment is a little different, you know?
Right. The experience is going to be different, of course. When, like
Right.
you said, once you know what's behind the curtain, you gotta, you know, you're good.
Right.
You're gonna have an opinion on it. You know.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't have a ton else to talk to you about. I wanted to get the stories, and I figured we could just bullshit for a while. But how is? I am curious. I talked to you about this a little bit last time, but with the ups and downs of COVID, it seems like you guys at the shop are just kind of holding strong and getting through the day. No big particular deal, right? Just face masks and
Yeah, I mean, this is another like the thing with COVID is the doctor's office and the dentist's office and even the tattoo shops. I just never understood the point of closing those down necessarily because we're probably the cleanest place you can be. Like we get we have to take a fucking 3 hour test every year for bloodborne pathogen. We have to
Mhm.
register ourselves every year. The health department comes all the time. We're it's probably the cleanest place to be. And other than when you're like, at least in our shop, every station is definitely more than 6 feet apart. So
That's a
just
big
the only people
shop.
that are closer, yeah, it's big, and it's we have 8 stations, and other than these, there's 2 stations that are too close together. So during COVID, we haven't used one of those stations, but every other station, if every single station other than the one that's close to the other one is working, no, other than the tattoo artist and the person getting tattooed, no one is within 6 feet of each other.
Right.
Um, but we were completely shut down for those 3 months, and then when we were allowed to reopen, we did, and then they kind of shut us down again. But then we were kind of like, dude, you know, kind of just doing appointments. Like we weren't officially open to the public, and now we are. But yeah, we wear masks every day. I'm used to it wearing it fucking 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's it's clean. It's we're making it happen. It's definitely slower, because no matter what, even if things are open, we still are in the middle of a goddamn pandemic. So
Right.
you got to think half the country is too fearful to go outside the house, and so then you're only dealing with half the country, and then half that country, the people that want to go out, you got to think some of those have lost their jobs or don't have disposable income. So then you take those, and then you have to worry about which one of those want to get tattooed. So the sliver is a little small. That piece of the pie is a lot smaller than it was 2 years ago. But I tell everyone, the moment like when things like by summer, by fall, whenever it happens, when things open back up, you're going to see the shops that have managed to kind of stay afloat through this are going to be booming because people are sitting on disposable income. The people that have worked the whole time haven't been able to spend it and go on vacations and do the things. So they're kind of sitting on stacks. And then things open back up, people will go back to work, and I think we'll be busier than we ever have been. But it's treading this water for this next, trying to make it happen to
Yeah.
get us to that point. But we have Mark and we have Freddie, so it's like we kind of we on my way home from work, I used to drive by 7 other tattoo shops, and now out of those 7, only one other one but us are still open. Like the other
Mm,
5, not even closed, like closed for good, like shuttered
right.
for lease signs, like they're done. So it's like it's crazy.
That's a shame. Now, so
Yeah.
you mentioned Mark and Freddie. I mean, they've been there forever. Who else is all working? You have 5 artists there right now.
We have Mark Mahoney, we have Freddie Negretti, we have East, who's like the master of these little fine line, beautiful tattoos. We have Donatella, we have Vinny Stones, we have Danny Romo, and then we have Asa Lee Crow that works every Saturday. And Asa Lee Crow is like a old school, like he lives in San Diego, but he drives up every Saturday for our shop. But he's known. He used to be Mark's helper back in the Tattoo Mania days, and his dad was like one of the OG tattoo artists back then. Like, so he's like the 4th generation. So yeah, that's the crew right now. And then Mark's got his apprentice, this Alessandro, and then me and this dude Gator are the managers. So
Right on.
it's a good little group.
Yeah, it sounds like you guys are plugging them right. I don't know why I was assuming that that you had maybe a few less people. Like, not that you had a ton less people, more that less people would work at a time. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like,
Well, that's true. Like we used to have like 2 or 3 people doing kind of walk-ins a day. So like on Monday it's usually East, Mark, Freddie, and Vinny. So we have 4. But like on Friday it's Donatella, Freddie, East, and Danny. So there's usually 4. Like Wednesday we only have like 3. We have East, Vinny, and Freddie. So like Tuesday and Wednesday we have 3, but Saturday we have like 6. But for the most days we have like 4 people usually. You know.
right. Okay, cool. No, that's good. I'm glad to hear that that place is still going, and it bums me out to see all these shops are closing. It's happening. It's happening. Up here just north of you guys too. We see it all over the place.
Right.
A lot of good stuff, not just tattoo shops. Good restaurants and small grocery stores, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
it's a goddamn shame. But I'm glad to see you guys are doing well down there.
Yeah, we're trying. We're definitely trying. It's Mark's got a good collection of clients that so does Freddie, and Donatello and East too. Like, so it's like the walk-ins have slowed down a good amount during this time, but that's to be expected. But people
Sure.
still want to get tattooed, which is great.
Yeah. Oh, I'm dying for it. I'm dying for
Yeah,
it. My buddy that does mine just moved up to Portland, so I might have to come down there.
nice.
See about coming seeing you guys. I'll make sure to call you the gargoyle at the gate before I come.
Yeah, definitely. I'm the gatekeeper.
Yeah, there you go, the gatekeeper. So we'll do another quick round of verses or what's better.
Yeah, I've
Um,
had it.
so this is one. Those guys on Broad Street Breakdown constantly shit on this, and I'm with you. I don't like a ton of hair metal, but these 2 bands I do like. Guns N' Roses or Motley Crue.
Motley Crue for me.
Really? What's the
Well,
deciding factor?
for me, So Motley Crue came out like 81, between 81 and 83. I don't remember when I first heard them, but I remember, I think I'm born in 74. So, I
Hmm.
wasn't even 10. And what I first remember seeing is the Looks That Kill video. And at
Yeah.
that point up in my life, I'd only listened to the bands that I was on tour with my dad, you know, and whatever my mom was kind of like listening to, and she listened to like Chicago, and my mom's best friend was dating Al Jarreau at the time, so like we were listening to a lot of Al Jarreau in the house, and then whatever was on like the movie soundtrack. So it was like I was like a Kiss FM kid, you know what I mean? Like I was listening to a lot of Prince, and which is great. I love Prince, but it was like I was very much like I was what my parents were listening to.
Sure.
And when I saw Looks to Kill for the first time, I was like, "Oh shit, like this is something that my parents will never listen to." So basically that album, I went out and bought Shout at the Devil like the next week, got my allowance money and found it, bought it, and blew my mind. I was like, "Oh shit, like this is amazing." So I always say Motley Crue because they're the ones that got me into hair metal and getting into my own lane of music where my mom
Right.
was like had nothing to do with it. My dad had nothing to do with it. And yeah, in all honesty, like if I was to make a mix CD of or a playlist of my top 100 hair metal songs, Motley Crue would definitely be there more than Guns N' Roses. Like Guns N' Roses had one great album in Appetite, but I think if Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 would have made one album, it could have been great. But there are both albums that to me at the time were like, eh, you know.
Yeah, I get
So
that.
it's just one. It's like almost like I love Biggie Smalls, but I can never put him in my top three because he just doesn't have enough product for that to happen for me.
That's
You know,
fair.
so it's like, so to me, it's like Molly Crew had, Too Fast for Love, which was, maybe not as good as Appetite, but close. Same as Shout the Devil. And then yeah, Theater of Pain kind of had two good songs, and the rest kind of was throwaway. And Girls,
Right.
Girls, Girls kind of same, but then Doctor Feelgood was great. So they had three, in my opinion, great records and two records. Where Guns N' Roses had one great record, and the rest were like eh. So that's why I put
Yeah,
Motley Crue.
if they were even because Spaghetti
Right,
Incident is atrocious and Chinese
right,
Democracy.
horrible. Oh,
I
Chinese
listened
Democracy is
to it once.
unlistenable. Yeah, it's unlistenable. I couldn't. So
It
it's
was
like
painful.
right. So you had that, and then the Use Your Illusion. But at that time, it was like everyone wanted to put out these double records. But I always thought, man, just make one fucking killer one record instead of two so-so records. I just never understood that. Like, didn't
Right.
make that sense. Same thing with Biggie when he did the life. His second record. And it was a double disc. I mean, I was great to have that much music, but at one point I was like, man, if this just would have been one more disc, it would have been. It would have been a classic like the 36 Chambers album was. Like it would have been a flawless record, but because it was so long and two discs, people can nip. You know what I mean? There's like the
Yeah.
everyone has like two or three songs on album. They're like, I don't really fuck with that one.
Yeah.
Whereas Appetite for Destruction was pretty flawless, but so was Shout the Devil in my opinion, and Too Fast for Love. So that's why they win.
That's fair enough. And I mean, I know I'm an outlier when I talk about the Use Your Illusion records because I like both of them quite a bit. But that's also nostalgia because that's also one of the first bands I found on my own,
Right.
and got real into it. It led me down the road of getting into metal and then eventually getting into punk rock when I was in about fourth grade. I found the Dead Kennedys and I lost my fucking mind and
Right.
never came back. First tape I actually ever bought was by Guar.
Oh,
And
Gar, yes.
I was just telling my mother this story the other day, and she does not remember it. I bought a Primus album, and I bought a Guar. I bought the first Guar album, Hello, on cassette tape, and she just read the song titles and threw it in the garbage.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but so yeah, I mean, and it's funny to me now, but yeah, I don't know. Guns N' Roses, I think it's less about what record did what and more about personal feeling at that point for
Right.
both
And
of us with that.
and I really do believe the band that kind of brought you into whatever scene it is tend to always go back to being one of your favorite bands. Like, when I got in hip hop, it was basically Tribe Called Quest and like Second to None were like and Cypress Hill and House of Pain, like those. So
Sure.
those will always be some of my favorites because I mean, Low End Theories will always be my favorite record of all time because that changed the trajectory of what I was into. Just like Shout at the Devil will always be my favorite hair metal record. But if someone came at me and was like, no, dude, this album's even better, like from a different band, like from a fucking Tesla or fucking Metallica or whatever, I would understand that. But for me, this was the album that set it off because I feel like if I would have heard someone else, like if I would have heard fucking ACDC's Back in Black first, like I would have been like, oh, that's cool. That's kind of rocky. It didn't scare me at all. I might not have been into it. You know what I mean? Like to me, ACDC doesn't fall under hair metal. It's just straight up hard rock like Aerosmith, like
Right.
so Motley
I
Crue
100% agree.
definitely scared me. Like those videos were like, I've never seen dudes look like that. They remind me of I was into the WWF at the time too, so it reminded me of like larger than life wrestling characters, and I was like, "This is the coolest shit ever."
Yeah, I'm right there with you. That's a great way to put it. I never thought of that. Okay, I got another one for you. I have a few. I forgot a couple, but this is one that I've been wanting to ask you for a while. I did this on my podcast with Terry, and it was probably the longest discussion we had during the segment. The RZA or the Jizza?
Jizza,
Okay.
because unlike a lot of people, when I listen to hip, the reason I don't like new hip hop or the mumble rap shit is because I tend to listen to lyrics and the flow of that more than I do the beats. So
Okay.
Jizz is just a better lyricist. So that's how I look at it. Like I always loved Razzcast, and I knew like people were like, "Oh man, his first album should have better beats." But to me, it was a great record because what he was saying and his flow and his cadence, everything was great. The beats were kind of secondary to me. Like to me, it's all about what the MC is saying and how he's saying it. So Jizz wins for sure.
I'm with you. There's an exception to that. I mean, I pay attention to all of it, and I'm a musician, so I really like the beats a lot. So I do pay attention to them. But if it's carried, if an MC rhymes, I've heard a cappella rhymes that blew me away.
Right.
So if someone can rhyme over a whatever type beat, yeah, I won't pay attention to the beat. I'll be all about the lyrics. There are exceptions. If there's something really annoying in a beat that happens every bar, super annoying
Right.
sound, and I can't get past it, I don't care what this person's telling me. If it's the secret of life, I can't listen to it.
That's true. There's a lot of beats. There's a lot of rappers that I like that. That's one song I'll be like, "Ooh, that beat's atrocious." Like,
Right.
but again, I like RZA's beats, but like I like Premier's beats better. I like.
Okay.
There's a few people. I like Pete Rock's better. Like RZA's top 5, but
Yeah.
he's towards the bottom of the top 5.
And I'm with you on that. Premier and Primo and Pete Rock. Yeah, you can't really put people above them. They're the illest.
Right.
Right. On a Wu-Tang, on another Wu-Tang level, how about shucks. Oh yeah, it's Only Built for Cuban Links or Liquid Swords.
Well, that's a good one. I would say I probably listen to Only Built for Cuban Links more. But if I was to grab one right now, I'd probably go Liquid Swords.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a weird, like depend. I guess it just would depend on the day or what I was doing. It's weird,
Sure.
like like it's 6 in one hand, a half a dozen in the other, kind of.
100%. It's not an easy one.
Right.
I mean, even though Method Man was probably the first one to break out on his own, the most well known, at least for a little while.
Right.
Those two records are the most standout darlings of any solo project to come out of the Wu-Tang Clan to me.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, because I don't even think Method Man's solo albums were that great. I think they were like those albums that 3 bangers and the rest were just like let's rush this shit out.
Right. A lot of filler, a lot of skits.
Yeah.
That type of shit, that's fine. And once again, I've said this 100 times on the show. I am not the type of person to judge an artist for what they want to do. If I'm not making it, it's not my fucking business what they have. I either get to show up and listen or watch, or I get to walk away and put it down. But I don't get to decide what they put on the record, what they do on stage. But I will say I do know what I like, and quite honestly, I have never found one person that agrees with me on this. I don't expect to right now. I'm not a fan of skits on hip hop records. They drive me up the wall, and if there was one, it would be fine. But I can't argue that The Chronic is a classic album, but I don't think it's perfect front to back because the skits are garbage. They were funny when I was 12, but they have not aged well.
That's very true, and especially nowadays where people aren't listening to CDs necessarily. So, I'm listening to it on my Apple Music, and I hate it. Like the Wu-Tang, that whole thing with the skit where he's like, and I smash his balls with a hammer and blah blah blah, and
torture
feed you.
Yeah.
But that takes so long that it's not skippable. Like it used to be on a CD, it was like its own thing, but it's like it's part of the song. I get the skits thing was to make the album, the running time a little longer, so you can get a little bit more out of it. But yeah, you're right. They don't age well, and there's just like no one ever just plays a skit or talk, like they'll, and yeah, it's like a stand-up comedy thing. The first time you see it, you're like, dude, that was pretty funny. That was good. But by the third time when you're driving in your car, you're like, oh my God, right? Do I have to hear the 20 sack pyramid by Dr. Dre again? Can I just fucking get to these nuts? You know what I mean? Like, or whatever song.
Exactly.
Like, can we just get to that? So, I
It's
totally understand.
Yeah, I mean, you know who else did it is not quite as bad, but I feel the same way about Big Pun. I'm just like, God damn it, dude! I don't need to hear you yelling in Spanglish about the Mac 10 in the trunk at your boy on the corner of the liquor store with ambient sounds. They like build a whole sound design for it, and I'm like, how long did you spend building this 20-second skit that's not funny? It doesn't go anywhere. It's not in relation to the song. Like, I don't know what the fuck you're on about.
Right. It's almost like I feel like sometimes they just did it to get their friends on, like to be in the background, to be on the record. Oh, you can't rap, but you could say this funny shit here. It's like the only dude that ever made it was like, the beginning of all those Jay-Z records with that one. I fucking can't remember his name, but the Cuban dude that would like talk kind of like Scarface.
Yeah. What is that dude's name? Huh.
I forgot, but like he was good because Jay-Z only used them really at the front of the record, to start it off. So that to me, that's all right to start your record off. But yeah, like just give me the songs then. Like you're a musician, you're a rapper, you're an MC, you're in a band. Like just play the songs. Just let's do this.
Right. It's funny that you're wearing that shirt. I have another one for you. EPMD or Gangstar?
I mean, that's a good. I would say I'll definitely say Gangstar as a whole, but if you made me pick my top song between the two of them, I would say Crossover by EPMD is like in my top 5 favorite songs of all time. Just because, again, it was one of those albums like when it came out, it's specific for like walking to school. Like it was one of those songs I listened to constantly on a loop, and just reminds me of a certain time where I listen to whole Gangstar albums like front to back, like nowadays. But man, if Crossover comes out of my car, it like automatically I just feel better, like no matter what. So Gangstar as a whole, but Crossover by EPMD above anything Gangstar's done.
All right, I like the footnote. I like the asterisk there. Good. Well, right on, man. I'll let you get back on with your day, unless you have any more Tim McCarthy war stories to share.
Definitely. Let me just trying to think if. I mean, I do know with Kenny Loggins named his second son after me, so that's a tidbit not a lot of people know. His son's name is Cody Sean Loggins, and he actually asked permission from my mom to use that. Yeah. Other than that, like when I think of them, I'll text them to you because there's definitely some. I definitely spent like. But like again, like when I was a kid, like I remember we played with Kenny Loggins at the Universal Amphitheater, and I must have been 7, but I met the whole cast from Facts of Life was there. And when I was a kid, I was and I was fucking in love with Nancy McKeon, the girl who played Joe. And I got her and her brother was there, and he was on, I think, Silver Spoons, Philip McKeon, and I ended up getting their numbers. And I would call them and talk to him a lot. And I was always trying to ask her on a date. I was too young and she was too old. She just was like, but I remember Henry Winkler was there. And at that time he was the Fonzie. And he was the nicest human being I've ever met in my life. Like it was the greatest. So there's that. And then, I know I wrote it, but, did I tell you last time about the Christy Brinkley story?
I think so. That's the one where you had sat next to her at the Billy because she was dating Billy Joel at the time.
And I had to sit on her. I had to sit on her lap for 2 shows in a row because they wouldn't let me on the side stage. So yeah, that was like those are the things like that were great for me.
Right. I always like that because that's what makes these so interesting to me is that everyone always wants the story where Nikki Sixx pissed himself shooting heroin, and they want to know exactly how many grams of cocaine were backstage with Fleetwood Mac, and it's nice to hear that there are cool ass stories that don't involve batshit drug stuff and and sex and violence. It can be
Well, I remember Liberty. I became like I found Liberty DeVito. He was Billy Joel's drummer through all those years.
yeah.
And he's when I was on Billy's tour, I hung out with him and the sax player Mark. Those are the two guys besides like the crew guys, but the band guys. Those are who I hung out with. And I reached out to Liberty a couple years ago on Facebook, and we became friends on Facebook. And we were just talking. I remember like saying like, "Oh man, thanks for always being cool with me because you always let me hang out and bang on your drums." And he straight up said, "He goes, dude, you don't understand." He goes, "You were the first kid that most of us had ever been around, and you were the first kid that anyone's ever seen on tour. Like you made it." Like he basically said, he goes, "You made a lot of the guys realize like, oh shit, we can have kids and have a life like this." Because in all honesty, there was no other. Like my dad was one of those dudes. Like I don't know how he did it, but there was no other kids. I didn't have a touring buddy. Like I was never on a tour with a person that was a teenager or younger. Like it was always, adults. And there just wasn't kids. But now if you go to a big tour right now and you go backstage, you'll see little kids. Like bands bring their kids now. And Liberty was saying that at that point, like no one had thought about it really or didn't really know. And then when I was around for those weeks, those like 4 to 6 weeks on tour, like they all kind of like, oh, we can have kids on the tour because it's doable. Like so things like that like are cool. And I remember we were playing at Wrigley Field, and the stage was set up and the sound guy was in the middle of the field, and they had the big tower and the lighting guy was up there. One of the spotlight guys was there. And so my job throughout the day was I had to run cables back and forth. So my dad would hook me up with cables all around my arms, and I'd run onto the stage and then kind of go down these stairs. And then they had the walkway down the middle where I guess they would have security where no fans were going to be. And I started in the morning, and like throughout the day doing it, more and more people started coming up. And I was like 7 years old. I had a fucking laminate around my neck, and I'd be carrying these things. And all of a sudden, every time I would walk out, like I'd put waters down, people would start cheering and like doing the whole like, oh my God. And my dad said I would go out there and like do little dances and like go crazy because I would love the crowd screaming for me. They'd be like, I'd like get them all hyped up. And so like to me, I never saw anything bad or weird. It was a fucking playground. Like my dad used to love telling the stories that I used to carry the wardrobe crates in when they were, when they're big. And my dad would always tell me like, don't fuck with those, don't mess with those. And my dad was one of those dads like, yo, you're gonna learn. Like you're gonna hurt yourself and you're gonna have to figure yourself out. And I remember like, no, Dad, I got it. I tried to wheel this thing on the ramp and it fucking fell back on me, and I'm fucking screaming, crying. And my dad looked at me and was like, figure it out, get it off you. I told you not to touch it. And I did. I got it. I remember people were like, oh my God, you're trying to help me. My dad was like, nope, don't help him. Like, let him do it. And I did it. But I knew then, all right, don't fuck with it if it's empty.
Right.
Like, but it was a giant playground. It was like cool things to mess with. We had to bring the percussion out and I get to bang on the drums and before the show started and use the flashlight and watch the show. And then you'd go backstage. And when I was a kid, it's like all the actors and actresses and musicians that were famous that you see on TV were walking through. But to them, I was super cool because I had passes around my neck and I was helping the band I was carrying things. I'd look like a little slave labor kid. You know what I mean? I'd be walking with like guitars on my back and basses and drumsticks. And, here's actors and actresses would look at me and go, what the fuck's this little kid doing? And so to me, it was just a giant playground, in all honesty. It was the best. I tell Mark Tattoos, the bass player Mike from Green Day, and we talk about it all the time when he's in. I'll be like, he's got kids. And when he first had kids, we were talking about it. And he was like, yeah, I just don't know. Like bringing the kids. And I was like, dude, bringing the kids is the greatest thing of all time. Like, look, and I told him how I grew up. And like, not to say that I'm the reason he brought the kids out, but like, he definitely was like, yeah, that does sound cool. Like that does, like, I think it was just one of those things like, oh yeah, he turned out all right. Like I'm not a fucking drug addict degenerate because I was on a weird tour, like on me. And I think he was like, oh shit, like we're not gonna, I think any parent thinks they're fucking up their kid no matter what they do. And I think
any good parent thinks that they're fucking up somehow because they're trying to
bring a kid on
what
tour. you're thinking that for sure. Like you're like, oh, taking away from everybody. Like, what kind of life is this? But in all honesty, I mean, I get it. Once you're in high school or junior high, you want to be more settled. But man, those years for like elementary school and before, like that's the time to do that shit. It's the kids, like your eyes are wide open. It's a new city. It's a place like you can't fathom what you're doing is important. Like I didn't think anything I was doing back then was important. I thought I was
Sure.
making my dad happy. I didn't give a fuck about Fleetwood Mac. I didn't give a fuck about. I loved Kenny as a person, but I didn't understand why all these people came to hear him sing. I couldn't understand what was. I thought everyone that wanted to sing got a group of people together like that. Just when you're a kid, you just don't know. You're like, all right, Dad, I'll do what you say. So yeah, it was definitely something special for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. The value of things like that will come to you with age,
Right.
with understanding and having your own kids and things like that. Well, okay, man, that's fucking phenomenal. We might have to go if you think of some others that are safe to from for people involved.
Yeah.
Like I said,
For
I'm
sure.
not trying to out anybody for anything, and I know you're not either. These
Right.
people are family to you, so I'm not looking for dirt. But you hit me up, said I got a couple stories, and I love hearing
Yeah.
this. I know people love hearing this. And you're one of the best dudes ever.
Thank you.
It is surprising to me, like when you told me last time that you've never had a drink, you've never done drugs, especially growing up in LA and growing up around the things that you did. That's kind of a feat in and of itself. So there you go. There's a lesson for all of you that are worried about taking your kids on tour.
Right. Exactly. Turn out like me.
Exactly. One of the best dudes ever. Cody, thank you again, my man.
Thank you. Of course. It was
I'll
an
be in
honor.
touch. We'll see. I appreciate that, my man. I'll be in touch again soon. See if I can't get down there for tattoos in the next
That'd be
month
awesome.
or two. All right,
Cool.
brother, man.
All right,
Thank
my
you.
brother. Later.
Take care.